Sorry, I'm trying to work it.
Right, sorry.
No, there's a bag on the chair, that's fine. Can I sit next to your bag? You can sit on my bag, you can take the bag off my chair. That's alright, I'm okay. Alright, 94 is over here. I'm the 94. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why the number ended up over there. Thank you.
Any reason why it's gone fake? Is that my video? From my video. Oh, it is.
I think that's how it ends.
Yep. Alright, ready? Want to go?
Your number? Not me. I'm going to go and buy it.
G'day, Peter. Nice. Can you do the presentation, John? Fantastic. I love the shirt too, so you qualify for Space Star and a Beatles band. You're both kind of, I want to marry you. Hey, this, that got recorded. Okay, cool.
I won't show it to John.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just hopefully that will work. Yeah. Do you have a seat?
Do you want to sit?
I think I can make the other side already.
Good. Are you eating it?
Well, that's all right.
I can run it.
No. You go. Make a start.
95.
Get somewhere to sit.
Did you have the pub over as well?
Yes.
So, did you make gravy? No gravy? Okay, no problem.
You can speak to them. You go.
That's all right.
I just had to get the thing that doesn't make a ding sound. Evening everybody, welcome to the November meeting of the Space Association of Australia. Welcome friends and new friends and strangers and interlopers and intruders. We're welcoming. So, we've got a very packed very packed meeting in tonight, so we'll get started fairly promptly. I'm Peter Aylward, I'm the President of the Space Association. For those who don't know, this is Michael Abdullah, the Vice President. And we'll start introducing these name tags. We haven't got name tags to everybody just yet, but if you join up, we'll give a name tag and you can put it on when you come in. Wear it while you're here, drop it off on the way out. That'd be much appreciated because you look like a real twit walking down the Military Road with a name tag on. And yeah, we'll use them each month. Anyway, let's get on with it. Big announcement, we've actually got a sponsor now, so we've actually got to run a commercial every meeting.
Re-entry from outer space into the ocean. These films show our astronauts in training. They take every kind of punishment, prepare for every kind of emergency. They must be in top physical shape when they face the countdown. And there's a new way to help keep you in shape for the space age. New post-count-off. Post-count-off is made with nutritious oats. You can count on it. Post-count-off is made in the shape of numbers. You can count on it. And look, you get this great space strap free with just 2 count-off box tops, packed with facts on space stations, spaceships, satellites, landings on the moon. It's free with just 2 post-count-off box tops. Start your day a little bit better with new post-count-off. 3, 2, 1. You can count on it.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. I just love that. There's another one we'll show next month. I think it was early 60s. Do you remember that, Jimmy? You remember early 60s? Oh, really? Okay.
I remember the early 60s, but I missed that one.
Yeah, okay. So, back onto a more serious vein. As you've probably been aware, we've been tinkering around with podcasting our meetings. We've had a bit of a go at live broadcasting. We've had a little bit of a success with that. We've had a few people interstate logging in and watching, but to be honest, we've suffered a bit from glitches and sound and changing files and that kind of stuff. And so what we're going to do this month, we're just video recording it with a regular video recorder, and afterwards, I'm going to give it a little time, I'll edit it down and put into a little video I'll try it up on YouTube. So we've got now, and I'll get to this in a minute, we've got a number of interstate members, and obviously they can't be here with us tonight, so they'll be here with us virtually. So the idea being that we're trying to expand our reach, get a bit more action happening, maybe even international, and try to have an archive of our events, because we do have some fascinating stuff for people that are not familiar with our group. You know, we've had speakers of all sorts and descriptions, backgrounds. We had the guys from Rocket Labs in New Zealand on a couple of months ago, and that was an absolutely fascinating presentation. I don't think that presentation has ever been seen in Australia before. So these are live guys, well, live organisations doing real space stuff. They've got a contract with NASA now, so pretty exciting stuff. So we've had a lot of other people, scientists, people that have helped with choosing landing sites on Mars, speak to us and that type of thing. So pretty good group of people. You're probably getting sick of this guy by now, but his name is Buzz Aldrin. He's going to be in Australia this week. As many of you know, and many of you may have already got tickets. We've partnered with the organisers of the event, and that's they've got 2 events: the Sydney event and a Melbourne event, Friday and Sunday nights, respectively. that has resulted in them providing us with a number of complimentary tickets, which we've used as an enticement for people to join. And it's been a quite successful venture. We gave away these 3 double passes, one in Sydney, one for the Sydney show and 2 for the Melbourne show. And that went off. They're going to include information about our group in their program. There's a printed half-page ad they're putting in. They're going to run a slide in their presentation prior to Buzz walking on stage. So we're going to get quite a boost in profile. So hopefully that'll result in a few more members, and we can do a few more things and spread our reach a little bit more. We'll get some chapters interstate, and I'll be able to retire as a multi-millionaire because everyone's just paying me something. So this is the draw. It took place at the studios of Southern FM in Brighton, and he didn't have anything up his sleeve. This is a presenter from the show afterwards. The 2 winners for the Melbourne passes were our very own Tim Franken over here, lazy about, and Guy Murphy, who just recently joined up, and he's been very active in the Mars Society. So he was completely over the moon. He was listening live and could not believe it.
Nice pun.
Yeah, sorry about that. And the other member, the other winner was our very own Andrew Reddy. Now, subsequent to that, Andrew very generously decided to offer those tickets to a couple of new members in New South Wales who have a long history in space activities in Australia. So they were absolutely over the moon, and we must thank Andrew. Very generous.
Very generous. Does he always walk around with his hand twisted behind his back?
No way. So, what's all this done for us? Okay, so I've had a quick look this afternoon. As near as I can guess, at 30th of September this year, we had 30 members, and we've boosted that up to 51 members. And once again, across the country. Queensland, New South Wales, Tasmania, and I think we've got one in South Australia, or Western South Australia. So, early days.
Percentage-wise, that's excellent.
It is excellent. It's the biggest membership we've had since the start of the internet. Which, for people that are familiar with the history of the group, we had a huge number of people when the organisation was first formed in the early 80s, when the shuttle started flying. People really couldn't get information, up-to-date information on space activities without reading the newspaper of what happened last month or getting on shortwave radio. So coming to a meeting and getting a newsletter was really the way you got your space news. Of course, the internet sort of evolved and flourished, and everyone get all that stuff at their fingertips, so our membership dropped off considerably. But we like to think there's value in people actually coming together and eyeballing each other and having a chat, as we're doing tonight. So I think it's a healthy development, to be honest. Anyway, now as part of this also, we partnered with Einstein A Go-Go, which, for those who are not familiar, 3RRR is a community radio station, the probably biggest one in Victoria. There's 2 big ones, PBS and RRR. They've got a weekly science show on called Einstein A Go-Go, and the guy who actually presents it is a huge space buff, and I got to know him over the years. Told him about Buzz coming, and he was over the moon, and cut a long story short, we helped him out, he's helped us out, so we had a couple of good exposures on his radio show, and he's going to provide a monthly sort of teaser of what we do at our meetings from now on, so that's really quite good. And he did a giveaway of tickets on his show as well last week and a couple of weeks before that. So that's the news on Buzz. One of the things that people thought we might want to do is to maybe get together, for those people who are going, on Sunday afternoon prior to the show. The show itself starts at 8 PM. It would seem logical that people are going to be there, that maybe they want to catch up prior or after the show. So Jim's had his arm twisted to maybe be the coordinator of that. So I think we're looking at perhaps meeting at the Lounge, which is a bar sort of cafe in Swansea Street. We'll give you the address.
Yeah, if I know who's coming, I'll send emails out to people, or text out to people.
Okay.
But it's about a block and a half from the town hall in Swansea Street up towards RMIT.
Yeah. what I'll do is I'll just flick out an email just with the basic details and if people want to go.
So if you bring kids, obviously you can't go to the...
No, I think you can. I think it's a restaurant, cafe, bar, so it's
Oh, it's not
one of those types.
It's not overrated.
I don't believe so. After sort of 9 p.m. or something, 8 p.m. probably is. But
The strip joint.
No, you're 16 strip joint.
yeah, I'm saying after 9
I've
p.m. I
only
think
heard
it's
it.
You didn't mention what we something happened.
yeah, 6:30. So 6:30. So stand by for an email and we'll talk about that. So that's pretty much it from
Peter,
me.
pre-show or post-show? I think
Pre-show.
I think post-show would be good value, to sort of digest it all and chat about it. I think pre-show would sort of be,
Yeah.
I think post-show would be really nice.
Show finished at 10:30, so it depends
That's cool.
on it's a school night.
Yeah, I'm over 18, it's all good.
So well, if people would like to have that as an idea.
There's alcohol there. Reconvene at the, also at the social place we for dessert. After,
Oh yeah.
That's up in Burke Street.
coffee with the tables.
Yeah,
Was that-
we'll reconvene afterwards. Yeah, I'm in for that. I don't know if I can make
Spaghetti
it before
drink.
one, but the after one sounds good.
The after party?
The after party, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be
Sounds good.
Yeah, we're in fast.
Close mic on this up.
Yeah.
Right.
Better make it a coffee shop then it closes down.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now the next item on the calendar. Actually, did I have a couple of slides left? Oh
No, you didn't. We're going to mention the
Once the alcohol.
no. Go ahead. I must have written the wrong thing. Okay. I'll have a slide about meeting dates. But have you got the email of the meeting dates for next year after this? I must have not taken all the news. Anyway, not a problem. So listen, this is our last sort of regular meeting for this year. Obviously, our formula of the fourth Monday of the month puts us into late December and the silly season, so we figured most people aren't going to be interested or in attending. So what we've done, we've arranged with the venue here to have a meeting, a special meeting on the 7th of December at 7 p.m. right here, and it's going to be our third annual trivia night, space trivia night. So come along, bring a friend, bring families or whatever, and it's really good fun. And we've had a lot of well, Tim is working on the questions right now, so buy him lots of drinks, and he might
Nearly
get
done.
an inside edge.
The answers are for sale.
Answer the start there.
We can talk.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. So if you're around, please do come along. And it'd be good to get an indication of numbers, because obviously we're going to sort of set up so that people can sit around and eat. We'll have a sort of a get together, finger food, first round. During that time or before that, we would have ordered meals. Have the first round, meals will be delivered during the break. Second round, desserts. Final round, results, etc. So if you can let us know who's coming and how many, that'd be
Peter,
wow.
just let you know that it's a very visual thing.
Very visual?
Yeah, you don't want people with their backs to
Okay.
the screen.
So you don't want a round table set up?
Yeah, well, we got it. People can turn their chairs around. Yeah, but
We can also push that
We can
out
open
and
this up
yeah,
and just have a bunch of round tables, depending on how many people come.
that might be an idea. Sort of cafe style layout, yeah, like we did at.
Last year.
you know, there's a round
Hey, what?
table with these tables.
Well, I think they might have this up.
Oh,
I'm not sure what they've got back there.
Now the other thing we've done is also you might have seen the survey we sort of sent out. Essentially, we've agreed upon having the same formula for next year. So fourth Monday of the month will be our meeting dates, which sort of seems to fit in pretty well, other than April, which happens to fall on Anzac Day. And so we spoke to the venue about that, and they said, look, if you want, you can do Tuesday, the day after, 26th. So if anyone's got any violent objections to that or suggestions for other dates, speak up, drop me an email or whatever. But we might. Oh, there you go. Okay, so here's the meetings for next year.
the first three.
First three. Yeah. So get your diary out, and once again, fourth Monday of the month is the program.
So we will have one in January?
Yeah. It will be Australia Day Eve, but we're thinking, well, the next day holiday, might be a good opportunity to come and come out and have a late night and things. Yes, there might be some people away, but there might also be people that wouldn't ordinarily get to a meeting would actually be able to come. So we'll just see what happens. So January. And then the other one at the other end of the year, a couple of we're talking about December 2016 already, but the other end of the year, of course, we'll run into the same sort of dilemma we had this year, where the fourth Monday in December, in 2016 will be very late. So depending on how we go on the 7th, we might do something along those lines. But we've got a little time to work that out. So that's the deal. I think I might have sent an email out, or might have sent a Facebook post out. So, so that's the news. Well, the association news at this point. I've talked to them already. You want to move on to the guest speaker?
Yeah.
All right. So, does he need to set up or
Yeah,
introduce him?
Yeah. So, if you introduce them while we're setting up, if that's all right.
So, our feature tonight is we've got a guest speaker, Mark Smith, who's also a Beatles fan, so he's got my thumbs up on two accounts already. So he's got a project called Nanosat in the Sky, which I think he's got the Nanosat in his bag there. So
Yeah, I do.
we can launch it out
That
the
was
car.
a big reveal. That's my bonus. Spoiled that out.
So they're basically building a CubeSat. Now I'll let Mark talk all about that, but the Nanosat revolution is upon us. We're putting a telescope in space that you can help build and operate. So it looks like an opportunity for us to get involved. It should be a lot of fun. So while we're setting up for Sunday, general show hands and people catching up for the event. You can go to the buzz and talk and up the other end, anyone looking at going to the Buzz Aldrin talk and maybe catching up prior to the talk? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's all good.
So just let us know. We'll send an email out. If you respond to that, that'd be really handy. Give an idea of how many people need to catch. If it's 4, we can just go to the coffee shop. If there's 40 people, just Angela? Oh, Jim was just taking names for later purposes. We're going on to the Buzz 3.
Times 3 or 4.
Times 3?
Times 4.
So without any further ado, you ready to go? I'll introduce Mark.
Thank you very much.
Mark Smith, thank you.
Thanks very much for the opportunity, everybody. Great to have to be able to talk to you guys about the project. So just a little bit about me, so you get a sense of who I am, where I come from. I'm an agile software product manager for a company called Akinix at the moment. Anybody know Akinix?
I use it extensively.
Do you? Awesome. Come and talk to me later. Looking after lots of things with Akinix.
For the rest of us, what's Akinix?
Akinix is a construction software management company that's just listed on the ASX, Australian startup, and basically make software that makes collaborating to build a mega structure a lot easier and save a lot more time. So yeah, it's a web app and has a lot of modules to it. It's used all around the world, about 40 places around the world. So it's good fun. It's a good place to work, but it's got nothing to do with nanosats. Anyway, so this is my nighttime caper. So I've run a software business in the day, and also I've done a few. Just to sort of say, I come from a technology background. I've done a Bachelor of Applied Science in Digital Technology and learned robotics and all that kind of thing. Back in the day, I've done a digital comms degree and I've done an MBA. So I've done lots of education, and I goof around with microcontrollers, as I'm sure most of you do too as well. 4 kids, live in the birds, and there's some social media stuff if you need to know about that. So I also run nanosats.info, which talks a little bit about nanosats and what they're all about, and nanosat revolution now. This was something from my bucket list. I wanted to not finish my professional career in many years' time without having made a spacecraft. So I thought, well, it's about time I got into it and started it. It's a wonderful time to build a spacecraft. I think 20, 30 years ago when those guys put the first Australian satellite up there, I tipped my lid. That was an awesome achievement. It's so much easier now, I think, than what it was back then. So anyway, they had me from this scene. Everybody know this. There's a thing on this, isn't there? Where's the little
red button at the top.
The red button on the top.
Move back slightly.
That one. Awesome, yeah. So this one, anybody get this? Yeah, playing it from far, far away. They had me at the first scene. I think I became a space nut on that moment. I still remember being at the Rosebud Cinema and watching that thing swing by and like, oh my god. So that was awesome. Anybody recognise this one? That is also one of my all-time favourites, and I'm sure you're all space nuts, so I'm talking to the converted. Anybody know this one? Mining the Sky? Yeah, awesome book. That's all about how to extract resources from asteroids and go out and mine the asteroids, which planetary resources, I think they're called now, are actually going out and starting to plan. They started on CubeSats and they've kind of gone to slightly bigger than CubeSats to do that. But they're planning to do that stuff. This one, I was really interested to see Guy Murphy won that. Years ago I joined the Mars Society and they were building a Mars counter-pressure suit, which was a mechanical counter-pressure suit to, rather than using gas to provide pressure, it provided mechanical pressure. And there was a guy doing that, there was another guy doing a rover. And so I did some comm software to go between a rover and a bot and the suit, and I had a little suit computer. So I was involved in a project with them. This thing really was amazing. Spaceship One. That was awesome. And then I just picked this randomly off the internet. There's now so many people doing it, and I want to be doing that. I want to be standing there, and that's kind of why I started this group. So I thought, who knows CubeSats?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple of people don't. So this is a CubeSat, and this is our 3D printed CubeSat. So that's called a 1U or 1 unit CubeSat, 10 centimetre by 10 centimetre by 10 centimetre, and a maximum weight of 1 kilo. And that gets put into one of these things over here, which is called a PPOD, a polypicker satellite orbital deployer, and basically it has a really big spring in the back, and once it gets to a certain point, it just kicks 3 of these out, and they fly out, and then they're deployed, and you can do things with them. There's a guy.
Will it kick out at 2U as 1 unit? Will it kick out at 3U as 1 unit?
Yes, it will. As I understand it, yes.
The Peapod weighs more than its the weight of its cargo as well, which is the irony of it.
Right, I didn't know.
It's a heap of dead weight that they take up there. It's incredibly over-a-giddy piece of junk, I think.
Right. Okay. I was wondering about where I should pitch this talk, and I can see you're dragging me like way. I can see you're going to be critiquing me very well on this. on what I'm about to say, but anyway, yes. So hoping to have one of these and one of those at some point, even though it's over-engineered. So there's that.
How did the Americans come up with designing a metric CubeSat?
Somebody saw the light,
Do you
obviously.
think that would be 10 inches by 10 inches by 10?
NASA is now metric.
Is NASA metric?
NASA is metric. They are officially metric.
No. Orion and all that's still imperial.
Maybe what they give out to the public, but all the internal measurements and stuff are supposed to be metric.
So Imperial Orion won't be able to launch metric CubeSat.
It will crash into Mars.
Well, yeah, that's right. Very good.
All right. So I decided to start a meetup to get this together, and I'm very proud to say that Jackson's here. Jackson, thank you for coming along. Jackson joined the meetup pretty much from the first one, I think, has been coming along and been a great support and contributor to the project so far. We meet the first Tuesday of the month at Bull Run Cafe in the city, which is just near where I work, which is very handy. It means that I can manage my home life and my stupid hobbies all at once. So if you're in there and you're interested, come along. Basically the idea was, we went along and I didn't know what we were going to build. It was completely random. I just wanted to build a spacecraft and said to the people that were there, what do you want to do? And it turned out that there was a guy there who knew a guy who runs a thing called There it is, linked up, good. Called iTelescope.net. Anybody know that? Anybody using that? Okay. So, sorry, yes? Oh, awesome, great. Well, you can tell everybody what it is.
Well, you can log on, it's just that we haven't had time to do so, but it's sort of things that are in real time, and it gives you a chance to be able to see it at any time. But yeah, we actually caught up with them inside in spring.
So what it is they have, you can book time on a number of amateur telescopes that are, better than your average store-built average telescope, and you can book time on them with, they give you a certain number of credits for a certain number of dollars, and you can go and book time at a certain time and point it at a particular point of the sky and get a really high resolution image. And these are very, very high-end telescopes that are on that network. And the idea, this guy came along and said that he ran this and gave us a bit of a talk about what you'd need for a telescope that was deployed. He gave us some basic parameters. But anyway, the idea is to get the CubeSat, once it's up there, to send back images, and then we'll share them on that iTelescope.net website, and people will be able to book time on the NanoSat once it's up there. So that was the plan. And there's a great book. Does anybody know Space Mission Analysis and Design, which is, or SMAD? Yes, somewhere. Yep, awesome. So SMAD is like the classic textbook about how to build a spacecraft. And it's more about how to design the mission than actually building the spacecraft. And so we wanted to use that technique, and one of the first things of that is to set the concept up. 83 par just then.
Is there another 92?
Start here and see where we can go. And it could be that 80 mil is worth it if it's just to get a team together and get the thing launched, right? And then the next one could be something more advanced than that. So it's that. The launch, Rocket Lab USA, we've talked about this already, but that's one thing. There's also Rokot, which is a Russian provider. There are actually quite a few providers now, as you said. Sherpa, okay, I haven't heard of them. There's a bunch of them now, and one of the jobs we need somebody to do is go and evaluate all of those and find out which one's going to work best for us and the orbital parameters that we want.
So Sherpa's purchased an entire SpaceX launch for about 2 years from now, and the entire payload, and SpaceX can launch several tons in a low orbit. The whole payload structure is all small sats, CubeSats.
Oh wow!
They're talking about launching up to 20 or 30 satellites per launch. Their entire business model is small satellites.
Space product.
Yeah. All these things decay usually within 2 years.
Yeah, and then.
Presuming they go out.
So it's interesting on the site I've kind of designed out all the phases, and one of them is making sure it comes down nicely. So
just on the idea that was floated before, if you had, say, 20 satellites, they're all going to be flopping out basically essentially pretty close to each other. If one of those satellites to be the communication satellite, which all the other ones fed there to and use that, so you didn't have to worry about carrying telescopes and all that kind of stuff.
So there's this whole concept of swarms of satellites, and that's absolutely, each one of them has a certain role and they're specialised. And for me, later on down the track, that's exactly what we'd start building, is that kind of swarm of things, each with its own role. So have a tug, have a a comms specialist satellite.
Federated sats, they're called.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Or Death Star, as it's known in CIAs.
your main basis for having something so small in the first place is to get it up there. When it's up there, it can be collected together, it can be conglomerated.
And that's the federated concept, absolutely. Yeah, they can then do things together. The next kind of thing I want to focus on is 6U to L1, and there's then a whole bunch of low energy transfers from L1, which will take you to a number of places, and I think that with a swarm would be a really interesting capability to have a long way away from now. We've got to put this thing up first, and there's a long way to go for us all to learn. So the ground station, we talked about software-defined radio for the comms. That's currently being prototyped. The other thing is we have a web app there that we want to receive all the data at and then also distribute that out. So I've been working in web apps for a long time, so that part of it is something I know very well already. And just being able to integrate with some of the internets, so Instagram publishing would be one thing, publishing on itelescope.net, just that what we can do once we have the image down to earth is there's a lot of stuff we can do there. So on your point about sharing resources, so I put this up and then got an email from ANU. And they have a great facility, which is quite amazing. So it has a whole bunch of test facilities.
His name was here last week.
Oh, were you?
We're still fixing things after you moved.
So I was so pleased to get that, because that was one of the things, was down the track, it's like, where do you get all this stuff from?
It's a bit concerning they call it wombat.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Wasting money, brains and time.
Well, I was quite excited.
I was excited.
Yeah, that's right. You don't want a project to be a wombat, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's great. So that's one of our problems solved, is how do we test? I don't know if RMIT's got some. I haven't actually asked there yet, but it's one of the places I'm going to try and go to next and ask for people and resources. So that's one thing. So Jackson's over there prototyping, and Vic is the guy prototyping the SDR system. He couldn't be with us tonight, but he's working away on it. I actually, I don't know if I've got my slide notes, but he wrote me a little paragraph on stuff. No, I didn't. Yeah, so he's the comms guy. So there's the website. That's what it looks like, and that's an early model that I did of it. You can join up there if you. It's amazing when you put a WordPress site out there, you immediately get spammed by Russian and various spammers from hackers from all over the shop. So send me an email and I'll register you on the site, because if I open up registrations, I get Anatoly and all sorts of people registering for my website. Oh, did you?
Just last week.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That would be great.
Do you get a lot of websites not only ending in RU but ending in CM?
Yeah, both of those.
Yeah,
It's wherever registration emails is.
RU and CM pops up a lot.
I block about 30 attempts on my site per day.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
So when you get
what's your email
spam,
address?
hover over the links that say
My email?
read what it says.
They don't only get that far. It's like,
So my email, damn it, I didn't put it on here. My email is mjdsmith2@gmail.com.
There must be a million MJDs, but the Smith will sort it out.
No, the 2 is the one.
So if you go on there and try and register, it will actually send me an email and I'll get your registration, so you can also just register on there. And as long as you pass the test, which is pretty easy to pass. You just have to, I have a thing saying, how did you hear about us or something, and I get OG, for a US state, and that's what all the spam bot scripts do. So it's been good to have that. I can detect them. So please register yourself on there, and I'll add you in. We also have Slack. Does anybody know Slack? Who uses Slack? No?
not an
Okay. So it's like, anybody used IRC? Yeah. So IRC, you have to have all the ports open. With Slack, it's like a web app that has channels just like on IRC, but it's just a web app, and then you can register all the people in your team. Anybody can start a channel, or you can talk directly to people, and we have a number of channels there that we'll talk with each other on. It's very, very easy to work with, and you can have multiple teams. So I have my work team, and then I switch teams to my nanosat team, and have another bunch of teams I'm associated with. So it's quite a good tool. So when you register, I'll also put you on Slack as well.
What was your email again? MJDC Smith? mjdsmith2@gmail.com. So there's all the people we need. As Jackson said, we've forgotten all our maths that we ever learnt.
which is a bit of an indictment, really. I'm sure I knew 3D calculus at one point, and I understood celestial mechanics at one point. I open the pages and I read the books and I get to a point and I'm just like, man, I cannot remember the fourth derivative of the something or other. So if you know that stuff, please help. It would be really wonderful to have you with us to help us out. So again? Yeah, okay. I haven't done that yet. I've seen that and I just haven't used it.
The fourth derivative, weren't they a solve group in 60?
So the other thing is people to help us design and build the payload, so if you know that. There's a lot of electronics here. We want to build a board and like miniaturise it all down, so that we also need a bit of that. Mechanical engineers to kind of design it all. The centre of mass changes when you deploy something, so that will play a part. Web developers to help us integrate the data stream when it comes down and distribute it out and register time and all that. Then the real people, as opposed to the amateurs, just one of those would be lovely. Fundraisers, if you've got a spare 150k sitting somewhere in a bank account that you want to lose, please come along, that would be wonderful. Or if you know some good sponsors, that would be great as well. And also legal, there's a bunch of stuff we have to work out, and there was actually a couple more below there, but they've fallen off. We need a MATLAB license, just so we can simulate some of our control systems. So if you've got a MATLAB license that or a way we can get that, that would be great. If you haven't thought or started, I think you guys have all read these, and it's all old hat for you. So there we go, there's some good reading that I get the guys to start reading on. This guy pretty much describes the amateur version of it all. It's from the Make people, so that's pretty light on. This one is the full maths treatment, and so is this as well. That's the mission design thing. I think between those three books, once we've ingested those, we'll be able to build one of these things without a problem. So that's the NASDAQ revolution. Please come along. We'd love to have you along and helping out.
So first Tuesday, so when's the next one? Is that date that day?
So the first Tuesday in December, whatever that is. I've forgotten what that is.
Anyone got that?
Second,
Yes. Or maybe the third.
Third.
First?
It's Sunday.
Yes, first of December.
Next Tuesday. There you go.
There we go.
You're right, it's the first.
All right,
Cool.
Mark, thank you very much. And don't be a stranger. Maybe come back and give us a 6-month update, see how you're going.
Sure, no, I might just come
Come back
for the hell of it.
Come along and enjoy the geek talk. Yeah.
Can I just say, that was really, really interesting. And apart from all the technicalities and you need all that expertise, the general takeaway message for me is that ordinary folks can get stuff into space now. And that's a generational change as far as I'm concerned.
Totally.
It was the province of governments for decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's totally changing for sure.
The expertise is in the public to put all this stuff together and get something into space. And even that amount of money, talking about 50k, it's difficult but it's doable.
Yes, yes.
When the tubes acts come out, it's going to be 10k a year
Yeah,
to launch something.
yeah. It's pretty amazing. The capability in there is not as much as the capability that the kids have, but it's still like, oh my god, it's incredible, right?
Yeah,
Certainly, universities and potentially even schools could possibly rate up that sort of number.
Yeah, totally. Can I take this out?
Yep, I'll just eject it. Okay.
Yep, good.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. You staying out?
Yeah, for sure.
I've been thinking about building it for a long time. At the moment, I'm just doing garage space stuff, so this type of stuff is happening.
Awesome. Let's have a chat.
So we're going to have a break. Quick little talk about space tourism. Essentially this came about as a result of an email that was sent to us from a new member of the association, John Tita. And he was heading over to Russia and sort of had a general question about, I'm heading over to Russia, anyone got any ideas about space locations, where we could go, that type of thing. So we had a little bit of an email exchange within the group and gave him a few tips. I believe he's over there now, and I think he's back in early January, so we've tapped him to come back and give us a forward.
He's in Russia now.
I believe he's overseas, I don't know where he is. Yeah. So, but what we thought we'd do is just a bit of fun. We'd maybe have a bit of a share and exchange of ideas of what people have done here. And people have been all over the place in what I can introduce. And so I've got like just a couple of little things. I've asked people to bring stuff along that they've got, whether they've got memory sticks or books or whatever. But I've got a couple of slides, and then we'll open up to, I think Angelo is going to talk, and Mike, you're going to talk. So so we're just calling this terrestrial space tourism. So I'm going to talk about something that I did back in 2010. I was over there with a couple of other guys here. Actually, these are the guys here. You might recognise these. This is Michael, Angela and myself decided we'd go over to try to see the launch of the space shuttle Atlantis for the STS-132 mission, which we did. Between the launch and its landing, I decided I wanted to go off and do a little road trip, so I took a drive to go and see all the space, the Saturn V rockets that are still existing. They put together. So there's one in Kennedy Space Center. There's another one in Huntsville, Alabama, at Marshall Space Flight Center, and there's another one at Johnson Space Center. So after the launch, I took off, had my rental car, and took a drive along the road up to Huntsville and Alabama. It was a fair drive, I can tell you that. I overnighted it somewhere or other. So this is the Saturn V rocket at the Kennedy Space Center. For many years it sat outside beside the vehicle assembly building. Looked fantastic, but of course the Florida weather was brutal and took its toll on the vehicles. So they eventually got funding and brought the whole thing indoors, restored it, built a beautiful display building and a whole bunch of interactive displays and things like that. So if you've ever been there, probably a lot of people have been, it's spectacular. So that was tick that box number one, and this is the standing under. This is what I call the bucket list shot. You've got to get there and do that under the engines of the Saturn V. So then I took off and drove off 1,080 kilometres to Huntsville, Alabama, and this is where the actual Saturn V rocket is. It was sitting out here in the open up until a few years ago. This is not a real Saturn V. This is a one-to-one replica, which is spectacular because it sits up there vertically, and you just drive up there and sing and think, man. When they say, you know, the Saturn V rocket's like the biggest thing, it's shot up like a battleship on its end. When you get up to it, it's like you can see this thing from miles around. And to actually see one of those slides would have been amazing. But anyway, the actual Saturn V itself is in this building here, and it's shot inside that building. They've got some really good displays, including some swing arms and rocket engines and things like that, and some great videos and films.
There's one less now.
So after that, I took off again, 2,300 kilometres. And I stopped in down here to Stennis Rocket Centre, but I won't talk about that at this point. Got down to Johnson Space Centre in Houston, and this is where the Saturn V is down there. To me, it's the most poorly presented Saturn V of all of them. It's just like a damn shed, but it's there and it's a Saturn V, so yeah.
They built the shed to be like 10 centimetres shorter.
Oh, yeah.
On one end.
The thing about being indoors, you can't get back and see that full thing, you know, like you did, you know, all those little
Is that flown at command module?
no, it isn't. It's just it might be. I don't know. You can look up on YouTube. There's some unmanned ones that they used. Boilerplate, yeah. So one of the things you can do, it's not the latest satellite, this is the latest satellite. You can actually go into the Mission Control Centre, which is the control centre that was used for the Apollo missions and the movie. Did they use that for the movie? Yeah, they built one, didn't they?
They were there, yeah.
And this is it in its glory days, back in Apollo 11 days. So you can actually go in there, you can do this. If you are going to Houston, get online and book in advance, because there are only limited spaces, this thing called Level 9. And it costs you a lot more money, but it allows you to go into different places, including walking around in amongst the consoles and sitting at the flight director's seat and that sort of thing in Mission Control Centre. So that's ground zero for space geeks like us. So, so that was pretty spectacular. And by the way, there's the email system at the control centre there. This is, for those too young, they have these vacuum tubed canisters where they put a special document, whack it in the vacuum tube, do a couple of switches, and it will shoot up through this vacuum pipe up to the back office or wherever, to the mission, so that was email back in the 1960s.
Like an still
Yeah, the old buttons, yeah.
Where they still use them in hospitals.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, there you go. So that's my little take. Has somebody else got a few things? I think I've done a few more slides. Mike, do you want to talk about your... What about Hendrik? You need to set up.
Just a minute.
Your trip, your road trip's going to do it for me.
Just about from a year ago.
You know, I think now
Sorry? Yeah.
Did you want to say anything about that?
fully connected, we have to understand
I just thought that JPL has anyone been to JPL before?
Yes, I have.
JPL, all right. A few quick photos of JPL. I was there in 2007. We were there straight after the Phoenix launch. We just saw that in Florida, then we flew up back to LA, and they were all happy about the successful launch of Phoenix and excited to hear our reports on it. Obviously, very spacey road names there. I was pretty excited to see that. Very nice campus they've got there. It's quite a large, spread out area with lots of buildings. Bit of history, a couple of young boys. That boy on the left there now is actually got his commercial pilot licence, so it was 2007. Keep going. The main conference room where they hold a lot of their press conferences is a nice little museum as well. They've got a lot of displays up. That's a thing of Voyager, the Voyager spacecraft, Voyager 1 and 2. They just keep going. So that's a full-size scale model of it. These were all the photos that were on that gold record we saw before. Keep going. That's the Phoenix lander mock-up. That's your little... no, that's the Spirit of Opportunity, one of those. Just a few other museum pieces around there. It's the Galileo spacecraft, complete with the partially deployed parabolic
dish. You can see how it's sort of jammed up, and that's how they think that as far as it got in deployment. Keep going. Just thermal imaging display, tape recorder for the Galileo spacecraft. Nice little signs like that. I'm not sure what that was. It was just a big poster. They do a lot of advertising of their achievements and things there. It's all part of the campus there. Typical California type of hazy day. Water pollution. This is the room where they were testing the rovers. They try and make it very similar to what it's actually like on Mars. So you can see there's a lot of dust. If you go on to the next couple of photos, you can see around the room, next one as well, see all the tops of the lights and tops of the ventilation, it's all covered in dust.
Wow.
So they really try and simulate what it's really like there on Mars to try and break the machines there as well. These are pictures of some photos of the walls they have there. There's another picture. More pictures. More pictures. Keep going. It's one of their clean rooms where they assemble some spacecraft. They're quite large, these rooms, you can see. So. And of course, Carl Sagan's very well-known character that used to hang around there a lot. And this guy on the right, he was our tour guide. His name is Tom, I think. He's a propulsion engineer for the Cassini spacecraft. So I asked him how he felt about what his feelings were at the time when Cassini was about to go into orbit around Saturn. And he obviously couldn't sleep for days beforehand, and he was nervous as hell because it's his motors that had to fire and fire correctly for it to succeed. So very interesting to talk to, and very funny bloke. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim.
Anybody going to the UK? The Leicester Space Centre is now taken over from where the planetarium was in Baker Street in London. But you will find, I think it's a Soyuz that's on display, and usually one of the English astronauts, like Michael Foale or somebody like that, will usually pops up there and do all that sort of stuff. It's £8 to get in, like 8 to 10 quid to get in. So if you are going, there are two things that you really ought to do. One is Duckworth, where they have all the aeroplanes. Then you also Greenwich, where you can see the telescopes, and the Leicester Space Centre. So if anybody's going over, put it on your list.
So does the London Science Museum still have Apollo 10 capsule?
Yes, it does. That's a permanent display.
Is it? Yeah, well.
The Science Museum also has a current display, I think up until March, of a lot of Russian space hardware. So is that Soyuz a permanent display or a temporary display?
I'm not really sure. It was when I was there.
You know,
they had, because that stage it was when the Beagle was lost.
Yep.
All that, but it's well worth it if you get time.
Not sure.
My biggest thing was at JPL and seeing Curiosity as it was being built. And now thinking like, just seeing it and now that it's on Mars, that's still the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because that direct connection
Do you have
to something that's
HDMI cable?
like the whole rest of my trip was nothing compared to just that one 10 minutes with that with the robot.
So Michael Apilla's got a plan of something he's looking at doing. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I've just got this dream. It's a very ambitious road trip across 3 states. So I've plotted it on Google Maps. Sorry, I should have pulled up the other version. But, so basically, all I've done is plotted the interesting sites in a roughly west to east kind of direction, and just sort of plotted the best fit. So this the idea is that we start in LA, where we visit SpaceX, which is down here.
When you say visit, you mean sort of go up to the front desk and say hi, or?
There are people in this room who've actually managed to get a tour.
Yeah, so I know that.
We have contacts in the Space Association of Australia. Let me dream. Come on.
If can you go there, also go to the Robinson Helicopter Factory, which is like 2 or 3 minutes walk away from SpaceX, and that's also really, really interesting. And they do tours there, manufacturing one.
Then there's the California Science Center, where they've got the space display and which of the orbiters is it? No, not Atlantis. Endeavour. Yep. Up through to JPL, where we were just looking. Now this is definitely one where it's really just going up to the front door, the Lockheed Martin Stuck Works. But hang on, we're going right past the door, you know. What are you going to do? Not stop.
51, do you realise?
You won't find the front door.
Yeah.
So we'll show the back door.
Up to the Mojave Air and Space Port, where you've got Virgin Galactic and
not doing much.
not doing much, and a few other. Up to the X-15 crash site.
Is there anything there?
There's a memorial.
No X-15.
No X-15. Down to Armstrong, Edwards Air Force Base, and the Test Pilot School. Then a big.
Is the Happy Bottom Riding Club still there?
Yeah, it got burnt down. Did you watch it?
Yeah, it got burnt down, didn't it?
Didn't you watch it?
I did, but might rebuild it.
And across into Arizona. Lowell Observatory, Meteor Crater. Down south through Phoenix and Tucson. Down to the aircraft boneyard, the Pima Air and Space Museum, the Titan Missile Museum.
I saw a show of the Titan on TV once where they actually simulated an actual launch. And two blokes have to pull the key X seconds, and they actually simulate.
You can do that, those tours.
Yeah.
You can stay the night inside the bunker with the
Up to Spaceport America,
Used to live pretty good.
White Sands Missile Range, and the Visitors Centre.
Now, is that there where there's some old rigs that Grumman had for testing the lunar module engines or something? Is it? That down there? White Sands?
I think it. I'm not sure.
Well, we're still missing the very large array north of Socorro in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Close to it.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have the very large array on here.
How do you see one big telescope? You see
Docking on the Earth orbit, delivering payload to the lunar orbit. The next pair is a manned vehicle and Earth departure state. Actually, 2 stages. even more complicated. I'll try to make presentation next time.
If they cut a deal with SpaceX, they could use a super heavy going at 50 tonnes to low Earth orbit. So
they did not get funding. The Energia was lobbying creation of 75 80 tons launch vehicle. They did not get money.
Elon Musk could sell some early engines to the Russians.
Yeah, and maybe the block one of the SLS will launch in 2017 is a 70 metric tonne to low Earth orbit. So it's a big rocket, and that goes up to the 130, 140 tonnes.
When it's actually truly hard to take
Bolden, the chief of NASA, actually offered Russian to launch their new spacecraft on top of SLS.
Space station?
No, this new PTK.
To moon?
Yeah. They offer Russians to give them a ride on SLS.
Just so you know, NASA is heavily involved in pushing the Mars program, but they have said to all and sundry, we are happy to help you explore the moon. We'll be around cislunar space with our equipment. If you want to develop a lander and something else, we'll help you. So the Americans have made that offer, and because it's not part of America's plan to land back on the moon, but they will facilitate. Their objective is still Mars.
And I believe they're looking for Russian spaceship as a plan B if their spacecraft will be ground. But again,
for the moon or for Mars?
For both.
For both.
For both.
So
NASA has no claim to go to Mars.
NASA's got
It's complete. There's no congressional approval or mandates or mission statements.
NASA has PowerPoints that go to Mars, but they
Lots
don't
of
have anything else.
lots of them.
Alright, we should keep
NASA's
going
going
because
to
we're
Mars via
getting kicked out of
Hollywood.
here soon.
Going to Mars via Matt Damon and people like that.
So that Mars One project, who's
It's not NASA project.
Who's backing it?
It's
No one's
private
backing it, it's got no money.
It's made up.
Private.
No, it's real.
They're trying to get
Private, but
sponsors.
It's got no money.
The software is called vaporware.
Yeah.
Just so you know, any program takes at least 10 years in current terms to get off the ground. Like if you want to develop a lander, for example, 10 or more years, 10
There's
to
more
12 years.
chance of peace in the Middle East than there is of Mars One ever doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. One other comment. If you have a look at who's seen The Martian, most people will have seen The Martian. Okay. If you see the technology there that they use to get that level of technology with the kind of funding that we're talking about at the moment, we won't be on Mars till about 2080 if we're lucky.
And The Martian is set in 2035.
Ain't
That's
gonna
the
happen.
year, 2035. And
Ain't
starting now with all the best will in the world,
Ain't
that's not going to
gonna
happen.
happen.
How good in 20 years?
Ain't gonna happen.
Well, we've been developing the Orion capsule for 9 years.
Yeah, and what's the Orion capsule done in the last 9 years?
Very few comments
And
are
when's it
coming
gonna
out.
fly?
With people.
Very few
When's
comments
it gonna
are
fly?
coming out of the presidential candidates, and I think one of them was Rubio. One of them said, "Oh, we'll build our infrastructure first."
No, isn't the next program to land a rocket on Joseph's grain storehouse in Egypt?
Anyway,
We've got to make Walk One by 2043, remember that?
what happens in 2043?
We're going to make Walk One,
Walk one.
according to the Star Trek Chronicle.
Now we're reality. Closer to reality is
All right.
And you know what? It's got about as much chance.
Alright, let's keep going everyone because we're going to get kicked out. Mike, we're going to kick out here, so what's going to happen? They're going to come and kick us out or what? Okay, we need to have our final segment, which is hand over to Mike for some recently declassified information.
Yeah,
I've done mine. Mountain material.
I won't go through this in laborious detail because there's not enough time, but I'll point to you. If anyone's interested in going to the site and looking at this stuff, there's a lot of stuff to look through. It's quite good. So I think it was the 22nd of October or thereabouts, they did classified a bunch of documents, images and a silent movie from the Manned Orbiting Laboratory Program. I was I was going to run a video, but I'm not going to now. But basically, the whole concept of the MOL program was basically a primitive sort of space station from which people would spy on the ground, utilising a Gemini capsule and
Can we use a snippet, 5 seconds, see what the quality's like?
well, this is not the declassified.
Oh, okay.
This is not the declassified one. This was the explanation video that I was going to show you.
Was this a follow-on to the dinosaur?
That's correct. Yeah, and that's what the video that I was about to show you shows. These are the some of the astronauts that were chosen for the MOL program. This guy here is Michael J. Adams, the X-15 pilot, the site of whose crash I want to go and visit. That's the link to the previous thing. This is the modified Gemini capsule, and this is the training's MOL spacesuit that was discovered in a cupboard or something a few years back. So all of this stuff that I've shown you so far is actually none of the new, supposedly the new material. If you go to the National Reconnaissance Office, and see if I can do this. Oh, great. Sorry. Somehow I've outsmarted myself because I thought I had it open already. So on October the 22nd, so basically they've released all of this material, all of these documents. There's quite a few of them. A lot of them are memoranda of understandings, letters, various documents of various types, some images and so on. 825 in total.
FBI a couple of years ago released a whole lot of UFO records too, didn't they?
So is that 20,000 pages?
Yeah, that's the number of pages. So there's a whole slew of stuff there. There's the video that I'll show you a little bit of, and then the pictures. Unfortunately, the pictures they're not given any names, and there's no sort of captions. So there's no index and no explanation as to what they are. So it's a bit painful. But now this document, this 36.8 megabyte document, is this, which is also available for download, and that's 232 pages. And just to give you some ideas, there's photographs, the whole history has been summarised. Again, if you're wanting to research this sort of stuff, this is a treasure trove of material. So I suggest you, if you're interested, you go and have a look at this. And if we go back to here, this is the silent video. Kind of a little bit strange the way this guy's just pointing at stuff.
Well, that sounded like if somebody goes there.
Well, he doesn't.
The sound's still classified.
That's right. That's right.
His
But
jacket does have at the back.
But I mean, what he could be saying at this point is a bit bizarre. But anyway, it's sort of interesting to see this thing.
This is probably meant for the Rooskies. Now we're going to confuse them by pointing all this crap.
I noticed the very prominent General Electric logo there.
It's obviously the space station.
I like feeling like
And this is the space station part of it.
This is what we did with the V2.
I like fondling rockets.
Well, that's what it's like. He basically gives it a good rub.
Oh, look at the size of those thrusters.
It's like a telescope.
That's the
That's
the
It goes on the CubeSat.
That's the big eye in the sky. That's what they call it.
So it can take pictures of the shaving.
This is from Land of the Giants.
That's the laser
scope.
That's the laser for it. Is that
Oh, the Star Wars.
laser? Yeah, that's where you shoot the laser.
So it is a very strange.
That's the laser observation.
Yes, that's right. That's the space radar.
Wouldn't this make a great sort of great music video?
That's right. Yeah.
This is the type of thing that Woody Allen would get hold of and he'd write a whole script for it.
And this is obviously this is obviously a mock-up of what the thing would have looked like inside. And he keeps pointing at things for no apparent reason.
Did they stay up there for?
30 days.
They did.
It never happened. It never happened.
Well, how long were they intending to
30
stay?
days.
30 days in that thing?
The mission was 30 days.
Well, it's something twice as long as what was it, Gemini 6.
Yeah, it was second front seat.
Yeah, well, they sat in a Volkswagen and started to chat on each other for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a model.
Apparently when he scooted on the died.
It's very strange.
They found that in the Apollos.
And he points at those ones.
It smelled a bit right.
It's Fred Scott.
It's a mock-up.
It's very strange.
That's what
It's not a good presentation, I've got to say.
This is the return capsule, obviously, for the photos.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'd say that's you're right there.
Why would they need return capture? They've got a...
Academy
It's
Awards.
like me.
That's the same as used on the Corona satellites, their return capsule.
And these are, and again, these are some of
They
the
were caught in great fishing baskets by flying airplanes.
They're up there for 3 months or more.
these are some of the images that were released. And again, I don't know exactly what they are. Presumably they're training.
Several of the mole astronauts transferred to NASA. Some of them even fly in shuttles.
Correct.
Is Crippen one of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Macarena.
They're just showing that it comes in different sizes and different colours.
How did they actually have the access hatch at the back?
They drilled a hole through the heat shield.
Well, that I
That
can.
was one of the things that was a bit dodgy about the whole thing. They didn't know that that was going to work.
What do you do with the
What do you do with the seats?
Yeah. Was it called Blue Gemini?
Yeah.
It didn't seal up properly.
Is that the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station?
Blue Gemini was the other station. Some load test.
There's an absolute mountain of documents in there.
So, if you are interested, we can run. This is.
What's the deal with the Air Force's secret space station of the 1960s? The manned orbiting laboratory is what we're looking at today on Vintage Space. The Manned Orbiting Laboratory, or MOL program, for those of you who don't know about it, was a U.S. Air Force program to use a Gemini spacecraft as the basis for an orbital space station, and its story cannot be told without my favorite, the Dinosaur. The Dinosaur was a hypersonic glider designed to launch atop a Titan III booster. It would go into orbit around the Earth and then return, using its aerodynamics to glide to a smooth, unpowered runway landing. It was conceived of in the mid-1950s, but didn't really get formal approval until 1957, after Sputnik's launch. When getting a man in space became a national imperative, the Department of Defense did give the program the okay to start getting off the ground. The problem was no one had a very clear idea of what dinosaurs should be. It was a joint U.S. Air Force SAA program, which then was transferred to NASA when it was incepted in 1958, but this meant that it kind of had two roles to fill. For the Air Force, it was meant to be a manned bomber, but for the NACA and NASA, it was designed as a research vehicle. The Air Force maintained that dinosaur was imperative to developing a military space capability, as did Robert McNamara, the Secretary of Defense. However, it just wasn't able to keep pace with NASA's developments, and in 1962, NASA was really giving the Air Force a good run for its money when it came to space. By the end of 1962, NASA had launched 5 manned Mercury missions, totaling about 20 hours in space. The Air Force, on the other hand, had no man hours in space, but it did have this great potential program. The problem for Dinosaur was that, unlike the Mercury spacecraft, Gemini had a lot more orbital capabilities. It was also conceived of as a system that would land on a runway using a paraglider. So Dinosaur's main advantage of being able to be controlled to a runway landing didn't really do anything over Gemini. So Robert McNamara started thinking about the value of a militarized version of Gemini and ordered a comparison between NASA's Gemini and Dinosaur in terms of capabilities. The report came back in favor of Gemini. Dinosaur just didn't have any significant advantages, and using a NASA spacecraft, the Department of Defense would be able to use NASA's research to really make sure it was getting the most out of the technology. On December 10th of 1963, Robert McNamara canceled Dinosaur and announced the creation of a new program, the Manned Orbiting Laboratory. NASA signed on to help with the program, sharing resources to keep costs down and also avoid duplication. As design specifications were settled, MOL emerged. A crew would launch in a Gemini spacecraft, similar to NASA's but slightly different, such that it was actually called Gemini B. Mated to the back of that Gemini was a laboratory module that would house all the experiments and also give the crew ample living space and working space to get all of their work done. It was designed to stay in orbit for up to a month. Once the mission was done, the crew would get back into the Gemini, separate from the orbiting module, and return to Earth just like astronauts would on NASA missions. From there, the orbiting laboratory could either host a second crew or be deorbited remotely and just meet its fiery demise as it re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. Unfortunately, NASA began to challenge MOL in 1964. Although there was an agreement that the Air Force and NASA would not duplicate technologies, NASA was realizing that after the Apollo program had landed on the moon and it was over, it wouldn't really have anything to do, so began kind of looking ahead at what might be next. The Apollo Expansion System, or Apollo X, was the first iteration of post-Apollo programming, and it was looking at using Gemini and Apollo hardware to create an orbiting space station. All of a sudden, MOL didn't look so great. NASA had better technology with its Apollo hardware than the Air Force would have with its Gemini B MOL hardware. So why would we build 2 space stations? There was also the ongoing argument that space should be a peaceful endeavor and not something militarized. Things changed a little bit in 1965 when the first 2 manned Gemini missions, Gemini 4 and Gemini 5, returned some really beautiful Earth orbital photography. Because not only were the images beautiful, but they showed roads and launch pads. It was very clear that the same or better imaging technology on MOL could be an invaluable resource for the United States in understanding enemy nations' technology and what weapon system they were developing. So MOL did have a very firm purpose. The program was officially backed by President Johnson and found a lot of support in Congress. Some members were even saying that MOL should have the same support as Apollo, with seemingly endless funding. However, it just didn't work out. The price tag on the MOL program continued to grow, and the US was now involved in the Vietnam War, which is taking up most of the Department of Defense funding. Another blow to MOL was that unmanned satellites were returning images from orbit that were just as good as the Gemini images, showing roads and launch pads and missiles developing in other countries. There was no need to risk men's lives if a satellite could do the work for them. Although the Air Force maintained that MOL was a vital technology for it to have, the CIA just felt otherwise. It really felt that unmanned satellites were just as good and that MOL was just taking up resources that would be better spent elsewhere. The program was canceled in June of 1969. There is so much to say about MOL. It is a totally fascinating program, and I will be digging into it more, although it might take me a while to get through all the material. I had this printed the other day, and this is only 3 documents of the hundreds that have been recently declassified. So rest assured, you guys, there will be more about MOL in the future, but maybe not for a while. But also, maybe some details will be coming soon. So while I continue looking through recently released material, let me know what other questions you guys have about MOL that you want me to look into specifically, or other Gemini-adjacent questions. Be sure to follow me on Twitter as AST Vintage Space for daily Vintage Space content. And with new episodes going up twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, subscribe right here so you never miss an episode.
So she barely took a breath. Jim knows her, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the name?
And she's just produced a book called, what was it?
Space Before NASA.
Space Before NASA, yeah.
And she was thinking of touring here, and she might even hook up with us one night.
She's also a member of that radio show I talked about, Einstein and Virgo. She's now
They
cross
record.
one for them.
Yeah.
And she was on the Pluto team. She's kicking goals everywhere, actually. She got a boyfriend.
Did she do those 1 minute at Pluto?
Yes, yes, she
Is
did.
that her?
That was her, yeah.
Oh, there
They got her on the team as a media lady as well.
Oh, well, if you really like her, we could...
The Manned Orbiting Laboratory Program, or MOL, used a Gemini spacecraft with a laboratory module mounted to the back of it. This raised a bit of a problem. The crew would launch in the Gemini spacecraft and have to get into the laboratory module behind it. So we're going to pretend that this S4B from my model Saturn V is the laboratory module, even though it doesn't exactly look quite like this. And here's the Gemini. So the spacecraft would launch in this configuration and be orbiting like this, and the crew had to get from the Gemini into the laboratory module. Now there were 4 possible ways they could do this. One was by EVA. The crew could leave the hatch on the Gemini here and enter a hatch on the laboratory module here, but this was a bit of a risky move. In 1964, when this question came up, NASA hadn't done an EVA yet, and it seemed like too risky a maneuver to build a program around. Another method was to design a tunnel that would stretch from the Gemini's hatch to the laboratory module's hatch. But this wasn't the ideal solution either. This would mean developing a whole lot of new technology that could fail in orbit. A third option, and kind of a crazy one, was to actually have the Gemini hinge over onto the laboratory module such that the 2 hatches would line up. But this was pretty quickly dismissed. It required a ridiculous amount of modifications to both vehicles and also left a lot of space for things to go wrong in orbit. The final solution was the simplest, although came with a lot of problems. Instead of having the crew transfer outside the vehicles through any means, they would transfer within the vehicles. But the only way to do this, because the heat shield from the Gemini is here, this is the adapter section, would be to cut a hole in the heat shield and create a tunnel leading into the laboratory module. This was actually deemed the easiest solution, and it's something that the Air Force actually tested and tried. There was actually one launch of the MOL program. On November 3rd of 1966, the refurbished Gemini 2 spacecraft from NASA, now called the Gemini B, launched with a refurbished Titan 1 core stage oxidizer tank as a stand-in MOL. It launched on a Titan 3 just like it would on a normal mission. The Gemini spacecraft separated first and followed a 39-minute suborbital ballistic trajectory splashing down in the ocean. Meanwhile, the laboratory module, or the stand-in laboratory module, was kicked up by the trans stage into orbit where it released satellites. The whole goal of the mission was to prove that the hole in the heat shield wouldn't compromise its structural integrity during re-entry, and also to test the basic layout of a launch. It was a successful test, but it was as close as MOL ever got to flying. So do you guys have other questions about MOL? Like I said before, there are hundreds of recently released documents that I am slowly going to make my way through, and this is just 3 of them. There is a lot out there for me to dig into. In the meantime, leave your questions and comments below. Be sure to follow me on Twitter as AST Vintage Space for more Vintage Space content every day of the week. And with 2 episodes going up every week, usually Tuesdays and Fridays, subscribe right here so you never miss an episode.
So, that's it.
So did the Russians have a similar thing?
It's called LMAS, yeah. So that's using the TKS spacecraft, which had been bought by some German entrepreneurs a few years ago to create a new
Around the same time?
space tourism industry.
Not German. The main, it's on main, Japanese.
Was it?
Yeah.
Japanese guy funded it, but I think it was
Main-
some German guys.
German Buran. They've got here. There is a museum just near Frankfurt, not far from Frankfurt, where they've actually got Buran. Yeah, but it's not Almas. Almas? Almas, no. Almas on main now.
There's a Arcadia's spacecraft in Smithsonian. Mainly.
I think we should thank Michael and
Just a cup.
That's an awesome
Yeah.
message,
Yeah.
Mark.
Angelo for their presentations.
So that brings the November meeting to a close. Thanks everyone for being here and all the contributors. It's fantastic, Andrew and all the others. It was great, really nice sharing of perspectives and information and comments. So thanks, it was a really good night, Mark. So as mentioned, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Next meeting is the 7th of December, not the 4th Monday of the month. So 7th of December, it's a Monday night, Monday here at the RSL. As I say, we're going to send emails out, so it's a little bit different. It's not going to be heavy on content. It's going to be a bit of fun, trivia, dinner, prizes,
Who's setting the question?
fashion contest if you feel up for it.
Who's setting the question?
That's classified.
Sorry,
So come along. Yeah, thanks. Good to see you, brother. Thank you very much.
Good night, young fella.
And so just one last thing. If you are going to, so if you're going to Buzz Aldrin on Sunday and you do want to catch up, before or after, watch your email inbox. I'm going to send an general email out, and give you all contact numbers. Is that okay? So Jim will be the main go-to guy for that, and I hope to see you either before or perhaps after. All right. Thanks. Oh yeah, we'll probably just say we're going to meet at 6:30 and just lay out.
Yeah, I'll bring a couple of those and say, you come and use the web. And then, that was a beautiful. But I want to see the Atlas go on, because the Atlas will be going on to take 41.
So that's where Raven went from when we saw it.
Yeah. I didn't have the tower.
Oh, true, yes.
Yes.
No, Joyce.
Thanks for your engagement, mate.
Have a great